Okay, now we're really going to finish the 24th chapter of the second book of A Tale of Two Cities, which is called Drawn to the Loadstone Rock, and the person being drawn is Darnay. He is going to travel to France. A letter came at Tellson's for the former Marquis, who he is, and the only one who really knows that it's him is Dr. Manette, and he's sworn him to keep secret about it. But he thinks everything that went wrong in Paris went wrong because of him, so he is going back. As he walked to and fro with his resolution made, he considered that neither Lucy nor her father must know of it until he was gone. Lucy should be spared the pain of separation, and her father, always reluctant to turn his thoughts toward the dangerous ground of old, should come to the knowledge of the step as a step taken, and not in the balance of suspense and doubt. How much of the incompleteness of his situation was referable to her father through the painful anxiety to avoid reviving old associations of France in his mind. He did not discuss with himself, but that circumstances too had its influence in his course. He walked to and fro with thoughts very busy until it was time to return to Tellson's and take leave of Mr. Lorry. As soon as he arrived in Paris he would present himself to this old friend, but he must say nothing of his intention now. A carriage with post horses was ready at the bank door, and Jerry was booted and equipped. "I have delivered that letter," said Charles Darnay to Mr. Lorry. "I would not consent to your being charged with any written answer, but perhaps you will take a verbal one." "That I will, and readily," said Mr. Lorry, "if it is not dangerous." "Not at all, though it is to a prisoner in the Abbey. "What is his name?" said Mr. Lorry, with his open pocket-book in his hand. "Gabelle." "Gabelle, and what is the message to the unfortunate Gabelle in prison?" "Simply that he has received the letter and will come. At any time mentioned, he will start upon his journey tomorrow night. Any person mentioned? No." He helped Mr. Lorry to wrap himself in a number of coats and cloaks, and went out with him from the warm atmosphere of the old bank into the misty air of Fleet Street. "My love to Lucy, and to little Lucy," said Mr. Lorry at parting. "And take precious care of them till I come back." Charles Darnay shook his hand and doubtfully smiled as the carriage rolled away. That night, it was the 14th of August, he sat up late and wrote 2 fervent letters. One was to Lucy, explaining the strong obligation he was under to go to Paris, and showing her at length the reasons that he had for feeling confident that he could become involved in no personal danger there. The other was to the doctor, confiding Lucy and their dear child to his care, and dwelling on the same topics with the strongest assurances. To both he wrote that he would dispatch letters in proof of his safety immediately after his arrival. It was a hard day, that day of being among others with the first reservation of their joint lives on his mind. It was a hard matter to preserve the innocent deceit of which they were profoundly unsuspicious. But an affectionate glance at his wife, so happy and busy, made him resolute not to tell her what impended. He had been half moved to do so, so strange it was to him to act in anything without her quiet aid, and the day passed quickly. Early in the evening he embraced her, and her scarcely less dear namesake, pretending that he would return by and by. An imaginary engagement took him out, and he had secreted a valise of clothes ready, and so he emerged into the heavy mist of the heavy streets with a heavier heart. The unforeseen force was drawing him fast to itself now, and all the tides and winds were setting straight and strong toward it. He left his 2 letters with a trusty porter to be delivered half an hour before midnight, and no sooner, took horse for Dover, and began his journey. "For the love of heaven, of justice, of generosity, of the honor of your noble name," was the poor prisoner's cry, with which he strengthened his sinking heart, as he left all that was dear on earth behind him, and floated away for the Loadstone Rock. And that is the end of chapter 24, and the end of the second book of A Tale of Two Cities.